My name is Daniel, and I'm 45 years old. For 17 years, Clara was my wife. 17 years. It's a significant chunk of a lifetime, a period marked by shared dreams, mutual support, and the belief that we were building something truly lasting. We met in our late 20s, both immersed in the corporate world. I a systems architect, methodical and detail-oriented. She a project manager, dynamic, assertive, and highly social. Our early years were a vibrant mix of career aspirations and personal milestones. We bought our first home, navigated promotions, and built a comfortable upper-middle-class life. We chose not to have children, a mutual decision that allowed us to focus intently on our careers and, seemingly, on each other. I saw myself as her steadfast partner, the one who always had her back, the calm presence amidst her high-pressure professional world. She, in turn, was my connection to the social sphere, the one who encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone. We were, by all accounts, a well-matched pair, a complementary duo. Or so I believed, with every fiber of my being, right up until the moment her carefully chosen words shattered my world. Clara had always been fiercely independent, highly ambitious, and accustomed to orchestrating situations to her advantage. In our partnership, this usually manifested as her taking the lead on major decisions, whether it was choosing vacation destinations or initiating home renovations. I admired her decisiveness, her ability to get things done. I was content to be the steady hand, the meticulous planner who ensured her grand visions could actually be executed. Financially, we were very comfortable. My career provided a substantial, consistent income, and Clara's rise within her company meant her salary was equally impressive. All our primary assets, bank accounts, investment portfolios, retirement funds, were meticulously managed and held in joint names. We had always prided ourselves on our transparency and shared financial goals, often discussing future investments and retirement plans over dinner. Our collective wealth was a symbol of our shared journey, our collaborative effort, a testament to our partnership. The first subtle cracks, almost imperceptible at first, began to appear in our foundation about 3 years ago. Clara started to change. Her independence hardened into an aggressive self-interest. Her once vibrant energy, which seemed to encompass our shared life, now felt almost entirely consumed by her own desires, her burgeoning social circle of powerful executives, and her increasingly lavish lifestyle. She became dismissive of my opinions, impatient with my methodical nature, and openly critical of my quieter demeanor. Our conversations dwindled, replaced by her monologues about her latest corporate triumphs, her exclusive social events, or her plans for extravagant solo trips. The warmth that had once defined our intimacy slowly cooled, replaced by a polite, almost detached coexistence. We lived under the same roof, but we were miles apart. I tried to address it, gently, repeatedly. Is everything all right, love? You seem distant. Is there something bothering you? Something we should talk about? She'd brush me off, attributing it to stress from her demanding job, to the immense pressures of her success, to my supposed overthinking everything. Daniel, you're so analytical. Everything's fine. I'm just incredibly busy. This is a crucial period in my career. I wanted to believe her. Desperately. I clung to the image of the woman I loved, the partner I trusted, the person with whom I had built a life. I cooked her favorite meals, suggested quiet evenings, proposed couples therapy. She would agree to therapy, but then cancel at the last minute, citing urgent client demands or unavoidable deadlines. The chasm between us widened with every passing day, every unanswered question, every missed opportunity for reconnection. Then came the subtle hints of a desire for complete, unilateral control over our lives and finances. She started suggesting, more insistently, that she should manage all the finances given her superior expertise in high-level business negotiations. Daniel, darling, you're so busy with your coding and your servers. Let me handle all the accounts. It will streamline things. I'm better with the big picture strategy now, leveraging assets. I found it incredibly odd, given my meticulous nature and her previous disinterest in the nitty-gritty of budgeting and investment research. I politely but firmly declined, citing my comfort with our current joint arrangement. This refusal seemed to irritate her immensely, adding another layer of unspoken tension to our already strained relationship, a quiet resentment that simmered beneath the surface. The final, brutal blow came on a sunny Wednesday morning, a day that started like any other, filled with the mundane routines of life. I woke up early, made coffee, and was about to head to my home office. As I walked past the kitchen table, I noticed her phone. It was open, a text message partially visible on the screen. It wasn't addressed to me. It was to someone named Mark from Legal, confirming an appointment. My heart began to pound with a sickening dread. A lawyer? For what? The answer, chillingly, was already forming in my mind. A few hours later, I returned from a quick errand. The house was eerily silent. Clara was usually still in her study or on a call, but her car was gone. Her side of the bed was meticulously made. Her closet door was ajar, and a small travel bag, the one she used for short trips, was missing. On my pillow, a single note, neatly folded. My hands trembled as I opened it. It wasn't typed. It was written in her elegant, flowing script. Daniel, I want out. This isn't working anymore. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. Clara, the words hung in the air, mocking me. I want out. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. No explanation, no apology, no attempt at conversation, reconciliation, or even a basic human farewell after 17 years. Just a cold, clinical declaration of the end, delivered via a hastily scribbled note, while she disappeared without a trace, leaving me to pick up the pieces. It was the most cowardly, brutal, and humiliating ending imaginable, a testament to her utter disregard for me and our shared history. My breath hitched. The paper slipped from my numb fingers, falling silently to the floor. The world went silent, then exploded into a deafening roar in my ears. 17 years. Just like that. Dismissed. Discarded. My mind reeled, trying to comprehend the absolute savagery of her actions. I felt a surge of nausea, a dizzying sense of disbelief. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to beg her to reconsider. But the note, so final, so devoid of emotion, conveyed an unshakable resolve. She was gone, and she had clearly planned this for a long time, meticulously preparing her exit. She had already chosen her path, and I was merely a discarded obstacle. A profound stillness settled over me, a chilling calm that surprised even myself. My initial shock and grief quickly gave way to a surge of pure, unadulterated fury. Not the explosive, emotional kind that screams and throws things, but a deep, dangerous quiet. A calculated rage that sought not just an end to the marriage, but a rebalancing of the scales, a precise, strategic counterattack. As you wish, I whispered to the empty room, a chilling promise to myself. My heart, however, was hammering against my ribs, a drumbeat of betrayal and burgeoning, lethal determination. The moment I processed the words, my analytical mind, the systems architect in me, took over. My lawyer will be in touch. That phrase was a flashing red light, a direct challenge. It meant she had already consulted an attorney. It meant she had a plan, a strategy for disengaging and maximizing her gains. And that plan, I knew instinctively, involved our substantial shared assets, particularly my significant retirement and investment funds. She, the assertive project manager, would undoubtedly try to walk away with a disproportionate portion, if not most, of our accumulated wealth, leveraging my perceived emotional devastation and her calculated head start. She had meticulously built her career. I had meticulously built our shared wealth. She wanted to cut me out financially, just as she had emotionally. This was a hostile takeover, a financial ambush, and I was not about to become a victim. A cold, hard resolve solidified within me. If she wanted to play a strategic game, I was more than ready. I might not be a high-flying project manager, but I was a systems architect. I understood vulnerabilities, backdoors, and precise execution. And I knew our financial accounts better than she did. Intimately, every login, every password, every nuance of our investment portfolios, every clause of our insurance policies. I had built those systems. I knew their weaknesses. I spent the rest of that Wednesday, all of Thursday, and Friday morning in a silent, methodical frenzy. I worked from my home office, feigning a sudden, severe flu to avoid work and any inquisitive calls from friends or family. My focus was absolute, my emotions locked away in a steel box, accessible only when fueling my actions. My first move was to access all our joint online banking portals. I knew every password, every login. She, confident in her sudden declaration and her perceived upper hand, likely hadn't even thought to change them yet. Why would she? She thought she had the element of surprise, the victim's narrative already in play. I started with the most liquid assets. Our joint checking account, our joint savings account, our money market funds. Every single penny. I transferred it all, swiftly and silently, to a new, personal account I had opened years ago, a small, emergency fund I used for unexpected expenses, one she knew nothing about, one that was completely off her radar. The transfers were quick, instantaneous. Notifications would eventually go to her email, which she would eventually see, but by then, it would be too late. The money would be gone, secured. Next, the investment portfolios. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds. All under both our names, but largely managed by me based on my research and decisions. It took more time, more navigating through various brokerage platforms, confirming identities, processing multiple authentication steps. I initiated trades, systematically liquidating assets, then transferring the proceeds to my new, secure account. This took a little longer, a few days for the transfers to clear, but it was all set in motion, irreversible. The house, our most significant asset, was jointly titled, and that would undoubtedly be a legal battle, a complex negotiation. But liquid cash, liquid investments, those could be moved with speed and precision before she had a chance to react or her lawyer could issue any injunctions. Crucially, I then moved to the next phase, the insurance. Our health insurance, dental, vision, all were under my corporate plan with Clara listed as a dependent. I immediately contacted my company's HR department. I need to remove a dependent from my insurance plans, effective immediately, I stated, my voice calm and professional. It's for a separation. They processed the request without question. It was a standard procedure. Within hours, Clara was no longer covered. She wouldn't know until she tried to use it or until the next billing cycle. Her employer's plan was more expensive and less comprehensive. I knew that. I even accessed our shared utility accounts, the credit card accounts linked to our joint bank. I meticulously went through them, noting all recurring payments. I then contacted the utility companies and credit card companies, informing them of the separation and explicitly removing myself from any responsibility for future bills that were clearly for her personal expenses or for subscriptions she used exclusively. I left only the essential household bills that affected the property itself, ensuring they remained paid for the time being. This wasn't about petty spite. It was about protecting myself, ensuring I maintained control, and making sure she couldn't claim I was being irresponsible or malicious. It was about controlling the narrative, controlling the assets, and meticulously orchestrating her eventual surrender. I didn't steal. I merely transferred. Everything was still technically ours at that moment, until a legal divorce decree declared otherwise. But I controlled where our money was held, and she no longer had access. I was simply protecting our assets from a hostile takeover, from an unannounced financial assault. She wanted to play the victim? I would be the quiet architect of her downfall. The emotional toll during those 72 hours was immense, yet strangely numbing. I was functioning on pure adrenaline, a simmering, controlled rage, and an unshakable sense of purpose. My mind was a whirlwind of financial calculations, legal strategies, and horrifying, fragmented memories of our life together, now tainted by the bitter taste of her betrayal. I felt a deep, profound sadness for the end of my marriage, for the years I had invested, for the future that was now a shattered mosaic of broken promises. But the sadness was inextricably intertwined with a cold, hard anger at her audacity, her presumption that she could just walk away, leaving me emotionally and financially vulnerable. She thought she was strong. I would show her what true strength, true resolve looked like. On the third day, after I had confirmed all liquid transfers were complete, all funds secured in my new, untouchable accounts, and her insurance coverage removed, I waited. I knew her lawyer would be making contact soon. I knew Clara would soon realize the extent of my preemptive strike, the depth of my silent response. I pictured her, somewhere, logging into our joint accounts, her confident smile fading as she saw the zeros, the frantic calls to the bank, the dawning horror as she realized what I had done. The image brought a grim, satisfying smirk to my face. The silence from her was the greatest testament to my success. I waited, and then it happened. Not a call from Clara, not an email. It was a frantic, desperate call from an unknown number. It was exactly 72 hours, almost to the minute, after she had left that cold, brutal note. I answered, my voice calm, almost detached. "Hello, Mr. Peterson," a shrill, professional female voice on the other end. "This is Brenda Stevens, counsel for Clara Peterson. I'm calling to discuss the dissolution of your marriage. My client has informed me that your joint accounts are completely empty, and her health insurance has been terminated. What exactly is going on?" Her voice was edged with a frantic urgency, a barely concealed panic that betrayed her client's distress. She had clearly just discovered the extent of the financial vacuum. "Ah, yes," I responded, my voice smooth, deliberately unhurried. Well, Miss Stevens, when my wife informed me that she wanted out and that her lawyer would be in touch, it seemed prudent to protect our shared assets from any potential unilateral actions. As you know, until a formal separation agreement is in place, those funds are technically still jointly owned. I merely ensured they were in a secure location, under my control, to prevent any unforeseen disbursements. And as for the insurance, well, as she's no longer living with me, and has declared she wants out, I simply removed her as a dependent from my plan. A standard HR procedure. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "Mr. Peterson, this is highly unusual. This is financial duress. My client is distraught. She needs access to those funds. And her insurance. She has a dental appointment next week." "Distraught, you say?" I mused, allowing a hint of cold amusement to creep into my voice. Funny, that wasn't the impression I got 72 hours ago. Perhaps she should have considered the implications of such a swift, unilateral declaration of "I want out" without a proper financial strategy in place. After all, she's a project manager. I'm sure she understands strategy. "This is unacceptable. We will file an emergency motion. We will freeze your accounts. This is retaliation." "You're welcome to try, Miss Stevens," I said calmly. "But the funds are now in accounts unknown to your client, and well outside her reach. As for an emergency motion for funds that are still legally joint until a divorce is finalized, and which I have simply transferred for safekeeping, I believe you'll find that an uphill battle. And regarding the insurance, it's a standard dependent removal. Perhaps your client should have discussed her intentions with me before making such pronouncements. Or perhaps she should have her own insurance plan, given her desire for independence." "Mr. Peterson, let's be reasonable." Her voice softened, a desperate edge replacing the fury. "This is not how we conduct divorces. My client is willing to renegotiate the terms she initially proposed. We can discuss a more equitable division of assets. A 50-50 split, perhaps, with spousal support tailored to her needs. She's willing to be flexible." I almost laughed. A 50-50 split, the term she initially proposed. The sheer audacity of it. 3 days ago, she was ending the marriage with a cold text message, probably expecting me to roll over and hand her half of everything I had painstakingly built and managed. Now, she was begging. "Ms. Stevens," I said, my voice firm, "there's nothing to renegotiate. My position is quite clear. My initial proposed terms for the divorce, which I will outline to my own attorney, will reflect her unilateral decision to end our marriage, her complete disregard for my emotional and financial well-being, and the extraordinary lengths I had to go to protect our shared assets from her impulsive actions. She chose to end this. She chose the method. Now she will face the consequences. But Mr. Peterson, my client has no access to funds. She can't even pay her bills. She has a significant mortgage on her separate investment properties. She's distraught. The lawyer was practically pleading now, the professional facade cracking. That sounds like a personal problem, Miss Stevens. I responded, mirroring the coldness Clara had shown me in her note. Perhaps she should have thought about those things before she declared I want out. I certainly did, in the 72 hours after her declaration. I let the silence hang for a moment, a heavy blanket of unspoken consequences of shattered expectations. Have a good day, Miss Stevens. My attorney will be in touch with my formal proposal. I suggest you advise your client to be very, very flexible. And I hung up. The relief that washed over me was immense. It wasn't the joy of a battle won, but the deep, quiet satisfaction of having reclaimed my agency, my power, my dignity. Clara, who had always thrived on control and emotional leverage, was now entirely outmaneuvered, financially crippled by her own impulsiveness and underestimation of me. The divorce proceedings that followed were brutal for her. My lawyer, armed with my meticulous financial tracking, the evidence of her initial declaration, and the documentation of the insurance removal, systematically dismantled her claims. Clara tried to argue that I had stolen the money, but I had simply transferred it within jointly owned accounts before any legal order of separation was filed. It was a legally gray area, but the swiftness and precision of my actions, coupled with her initial aggressive abandonment, put her at a severe disadvantage. She had no proof of malicious intent on my part, only her own impulsiveness. Her original law firm, Brenda Stevens, eventually dropped her as a client, unwilling to pursue a case with such a weak financial standing and questionable tactics. She struggled to find new representation. Her carefully constructed world, built on appearances, a facade of success, and a presumed easy divorce, crumbled before her eyes. She ended up with a fraction of what she had initially expected, a pittance compared to her previous lifestyle. She had to sell her separate investment properties at a significant loss to cover her mounting legal fees and personal debts. She lost her prestigious job, unable to cope with the stress and the tarnished image of her public breakdown. Her social circle, once so vibrant, dissipated. The word spread quickly about her financial ruin and her desperate situation. I, on the other hand, slowly rebuilt. The financial impact on me was significant, primarily due to legal fees, but I had secured the vast majority of our assets. The emotional scars, however, were deep. Trusting again, truly trusting, felt impossible. But I learned to be self-sufficient in a way I hadn't been since before the marriage, perhaps ever. I invested in myself, picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends who had seen through Clara's superficiality from the start. I found a quiet peace in my ordered, independent life. Sometimes, I hear through the grapevine that Clara is struggling, that her life is a mess. I feel no joy, no schadenfreude, only a cold, detached sense of I told you so, and a deep, profound sadness for the woman she became. She thought she could walk away, leaving me emotionally and financially devastated. But I showed her that underestimating the quiet, methodical man she married was the biggest mistake of her life. My wife texted, "I want out. My lawyer will be in touch." I said, "As you wish." Then I contacted HR, removed her from the insurance, and let her handle the bills. 72 hours later, her lawyer called me in a panic. And in that moment, I realized that true power in a confrontation isn't about making grand pronouncements, but about quietly preparing for the inevitable and executing with chilling, precise speed. It was a hard lesson for both of us, but one that ultimately secured my future.